And in our top business story, Saudi Arabia's finance ministry set new income taxes for oil companies yesterday in a move towards promised fiscal reform and to help pave the way for a possible sale of a small part of its national oil company, Saudi Aramco. The government announced in a statement via its official news agency that the income tax rate for companies with a capital value above 375 billion Saudi riyals would be cut to 50% from 85%. Aramco, which is above the 375 billion riyals capital threshold, currently pays a 20% royalty on its production, which averaged about 10.5 million barrels per day last year, and an 85% rate on its income. The government has been urged by the IMF to reform its fiscal system to bring it in line with international practice and to attract private sector investors, not only to Aramco and the hydrocarbon sector, but to a wide range of privatization projects the kingdom has set out as part of the government's Vision 2030 reform program. The UAE will close down a business for 72 hours and impose a severe financial penalty for value-added tax evasion, according to tax consultants who attended a VAT briefing by the Ministry of Finance. The briefing for advisors took place ahead of a nationwide awareness campaign by the Ministry of Finance that will educate stakeholders on the collection of VAT ahead of its implementation. Officials from the ministry stated that audits will generally be conducted only after 5 days advance notice, except where fraud is suspected. In these cases, a business may be closed down for 72 hours and penalties of up to 500% may be applied on top of the primary VAT owning. Officials also reportedly mentioned that a zero rate of VAT will be applied to healthcare and education services. No VAT will also be imposed on life insurance, but all non-life insurance products will be subject to the standard VAT rate. In addition, local transport providers such as taxis, buses and trains will be exempt from VAT. However, VAT for supplies made within free zones and by free zone entities is still under financial consideration. On import duties, the Ministry of Finance said that the importation of goods into the UAE will be subject to a reverse charge, which means businesses will not have to physically pay VAT at the point of import. If imported through the UAE, there will be no entitlement to recover the import VAT paid as input VAT in the UAE and will also have to be recovered from the final destination member state. The country's food and beverage operators are getting some relief from falling rents as the softening economy eats into their bottom line. There is downward pressure on the cost of units outside the main malls because the supply of retail space has increased. The UAE economy has slowed over the past 20 months as the low oil prices sparked redundancies, and the subsequent negative consumer sentiment led to people cutting back on eating out. However, the scale and scope of new developments across the country has fed the supply of retail units. According to local reports, many landlords are willing to negotiate their rents to keep concepts in their buildings, with some reporting that rents charged for new outlets were 40% lower compared with rates charged in 2014. According to Matt Green, the head of research and consulting at property consultancy CBRE, rental pressure for smaller landlords is downward. Green added that it is very important for the smaller landlords to keep good tenants, so that balance is now swinging towards the tenant and there is a lot more flexibility in negotiation. Big malls are still fully occupied, and while F&B operators aren't making what they did 18 months ago, they're still in a good location with decent returns, according to CBRE. And Emirates Airline might offer passengers loaner laptops as the world's biggest long-haul carrier seeks to soften the blow from a US ban on electronics in airplane cabins. The Dubai-based airline may explore creative ways to work around the ban if it remains in place over the long term, according to the airline's president, Tim Clark. This could include providing government-approved laptops that can be used in-flight to help people do what they need to do in the absence of devices that are in the hold. Mr. Clark indicated that the airline's routes to the US could be at risk if travelers book with rivals, so it intends to adjust accordingly to whatever actions the the United States government takes. Under a rule that came into effect on Saturday, the US prohibits travelers and flights from 10 Middle Eastern airports, including Dubai, from bringing large electronics into the aircraft cabin. The UK partially followed but didn't target the Arabian Gulf hubs. Mr. Clark was critical of the selective targeting of the laptop ban, saying if there's a risk that laptops can be used during flights for terrorist activity, then the restriction should be applied to the airline industry universally.